And for more on this, we have Subhamoy Bhattacharjee, Senior Economic Journalist, joining us. Welcome to the studio, sir. My first question to you is that Prime Minister said that India's reform express continues to gain momentum. India's GDP growth is actually projected at 7.4%, higher than last year, actually much higher than last year. How significant is this jump in the current global economic climate and considering also India's long-term potential growth?
Basically very significant considering the current global economic climate, which is extremely difficult. So in that circumstance, this sort of a thing to have happened is very, very important. Three things about this growth rate. First of all, the investment rate has climbed up to over 7%. That is something very significant. The second part is that these are advanced estimates. So these are likely to be revised, and they will be revised when the final figures come out. What I basically mean is that I expect that when more data comes out about the year, I expect these numbers could actually see even a further refinement or further higher.
Right.
And the third part is that our GDP is being, the base year is being revised, and the revised numbers will come out in February. So when you see that, you'd find a much more interesting pattern coming up. So these are the first points, yeah.
All right, so the revised numbers would come out in February. But also, sir, the Prime Minister credited reforms like infrastructure investment, manufacturing incentives and digital public goods for GDP growth. Which of these measures do you think has had the most immediate impact?
Again, out here, what the Prime Minister was saying was absolutely right, that the investment is the biggest thing that the government has done. The fact that the investment climate has been kept up, and the government has been continuously pushing for higher investment by putting larger money. For instance, the current year itself, the total capex is 11.2 trillion. Now that's a huge number to have invested in. Last year, and this comes on the basis of last year, where it was about 10.5 trillion, and the year before. So you can see that there's a consistent push towards investment, and that is showing up. That is essentially providing the momentum for the economy to grow ahead. There are lots of sectors where India needs to grow, and infrastructure. And by infrastructure, we mean a large number of things, right from renewable energy, right from oil and gas pipeline to roads, railways, space exploration. There are so many things that needs to be invested in and are being invested in. The maritime sector, for instance. So overall, that is providing a very welcome demand boost to the economy. And that is where the action is primarily originating on. Along with that, about one thing, which is that inflation has actually been very benign. There are some commentators who are, of course, saying that the inflation has gone too low. But I would say that given the geopolitical condition, the fact that we have a low inflation, a very low inflation right now, provides us the maneuvering space to do much more.
All right, so low inflation, of course, is helping. But Prime Minister also said that the growth outlook is being driven by the NDA government's sustained investment push, as you also mentioned, and demand-led policy measures. Official data showed that strong performance in the services sector remains a key growth driver. Is this momentum sustainable, or does India still need a stronger manufacturing push?
Manufacturing, obviously, we would need the private sector to actually come in big time. This is something that has not happened. But it is so. But at least in this numbers, we do see fairly substantial in the evidence of the private investment picking up, and that needs to continue. Along with that, the investments being done, especially in the sunrise sectors, and here I include not just renewable, but also the fact of investment in the electronic sector, semiconductor, electronic components. These are very, very key areas for India to actually be investing in, because they would provide the push that the economy needs. We cannot be pushing investments in sectors which are, well, they're frankly not very, very, important in terms of the fact that they were used to be earlier, but they are not there. Another sector where the government is pushing reform is the MSME sector. The MSME sector, both in the recent export package as well as the earlier steps that have been taken, including rationalization of GST, has benefited enormously. And that I think is very important, both from the employment point of view as well as exports point of view.
All right. So as you said, government is pushing MSMEs. How important is the ease of doing business, as the Prime Minister also mentioned, the ease of doing business push in translating policy into the real economic growth on the ground itself?
A lot of work actually needs to be done by the state governments. That is where the ease of doing business really comes in. Two steps that the government has taken, central government, which I think are very salutary. One is the promulgation of rules under the labor code. So that is something that was very necessary, very substantial ease of doing business thing. And I would think that is really, we are going to see the impact of that very soon. In terms of the other ease of doing business, the very fact that the GST tax rates have been rationalized to just 2 is a very big ease of doing business support.
All right. Also, sir, with near double-digit growth in services during the July-September quarter last year, what specific subsectors are contributing the most? Also, is India becoming overly services dependent, or is this a natural evolution of the economy we see?
Because this is something that is often debated. Manufacturing, we are trying to push, and we will be getting some further developments on those from that sector. But services certainly is our biggest part of our GDP. It's almost close to 60%. And by services, of course, this time the GDP numbers show that public administration, which is the government-led services, have been a very significant factor. But along with that, you would also see trade, transport, hotels. These sectors have done well. Financial sector has done well. So essentially, the services economy is really pushing ahead. And that is also being led by the fact that private consumption, which had been lagging for a long time, has actually kept up the momentum. It is slightly lower this time from the last iteration. It was 7.2% earlier. It is now 7%, but both basically show that private consumption has picked up, and private consumption largely pushes services sector. So there is a tremendous, what I should say, supportive factors happening each around. As I said, inflation is a very major help in this context, because a low inflation allows people to go in for discretionary purchases, to be able to feel that they can afford more, and that gives a lot of support to the services sector. People can go out for travel, people can go out for eating out, for ordering, and all this sort of things at a large countrywide level is giving a very big sector. I mean, a big push. I mean, imagine the amount of expansion that's happening in our gig economy, for instance, the e-commerce sectors, for instance. That's phenomenal. That is much more large than the scale at which manufacturing is operating now.
So private consumption is linked to the services sector, but also real GVA, if we talk about, is expected to grow to 7.3% in 2026. Does this indicate a structurally stronger economy, or are there risks beneath the headline numbers? In fact, does this reflect genuine productivity gains, or is it largely demand-driven growth?
The genuine productivity gain is obviously happening, especially the fact that the investment in numbers are showing up very strongly, shows that India definitely is pushing for substantive changes, and that is actually showing up. In fact, had it just been a consumption-led phenomena, we would have been our growth momentum would have tapered off much more earlier. Remember, during the COVID times, we did not give much of financial support, like printing extra cash and giving out to people. That helped us avoid an inflationary spiral. The government instead pushed for basically reopening of the economy and managing the demand conditions well. And that has helped. So what we can see is that in 25, 26, and now going on to 26, 27, 4 years after COVID, the Indian economy, instead of slowing, has actually has begun to accelerate. I mean, our growth rate this year is more than last year. So that just shows that the policies have been smart.
All right. So, sir, manufacturing and construction are seen growing at around 7%, while agriculture remains moderate. Should this imbalance be a concern, or what more is needed to push the manufacturing into a higher growth trajectory?
I'll take the agriculture thing first. What has happened is that the agriculture growth last year was something, the value add in agriculture was up something like 10.8. Now, on that base, it was very difficult to show for any, I mean, even though we have had very good rains this year, massive crop production, India has now become the largest rice producer in the world. But what has happened is that despite those numbers coming on a huge jump last year, isn't showing up, I mean, doesn't show up as a very big jump. So that is where the statistical anomaly comes in. We have agricultural growth instead of looking at 4.1%, it's about 3% this year. But that doesn't mean that the agriculture growth has slowed up. It's simply the massive base from last year, which has led to the fact that the growth this year is looking smaller. On manufacturing sector, yes, the construction sector still needs to get up to speed. And there are lots of things there. Primarily, this is one sector which depends on private investment, because this is construction that is not the construction for just for roads or railways or other things, but it's construction as in real estate, construction in the cities, construction that we see around us. But this is one sector where momentum is still needed. There's a lot of problem there in terms of, for instance, the fact that there's a lot of unused or unsold housing inventory in lots of places. And that's primarily because of the fact that the real estate companies have not priced themselves correctly. There are too many luxury homes that have been built, whereas the middle class and the affordable home category has been left unspent, have been left untouched. That is something that needs to be corrected, and that needs. I mean that's where the construction weakness is coming through. That's also a sector which provides a lot of employment. So that's a sector that could do with the attention, but
Right.
not by demand subsidy, but by simply ensuring that the corrections happen in the balance sheets of these companies.
All right. So also finally, I would like to ask you that the Prime Minister has credited reforms, infrastructure, spending and ease of doing business as we discussed. Which of these reforms has had the biggest impact on GDP growth so far?
Two of those have been very big this year. For instance, in the last budget, Finance Minister has announced income tax cut up to rupees 12 lakh. There's no income tax, and that is a very big change that has actually put a lot of money in the hands of the people. And this year in October, the GST rationalization has been a very big change. I mean, the impact, as I've been saying earlier, is only now starting to show up in full measure. So throughout this winter, demand conditions have really come up very big time. These two, I would say, and these were basically within the central government's realm, and central government has done it very well in terms of doing the push on these things. The other reform package, as I said, is the labor law, which will the announcement of the labor of the rules under the labor law, which had been in abeyance for a long time. They've just been announced, and those will start showing up their visibility. I mean, they will start becoming visible in terms of pushing growth in the months to come. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us and giving us all that information and analysis for the GDP growth.